Hello, everybody. This is Mary Davidson, one of your co-hosts, and in today's episode, we are going all in on team management. This is Team Management 101 with Alex Martin. Alex is an amazing team manager. We've learned a lot from her over the years, and so we are excited to bring her on the podcast today to share all about managing teams. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Welcome to the Better Events Podcast. Join two event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events Podcast.
Hi, friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Logan Clements, and I'm joined by fellow co-host Mary Davidson. And this week, we are joined by a very special friend to talk all about team management when it comes to events. So, Mary, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce Alex.
I am so excited to introduce Alex. So, leading the team at Synchronocity Events, Alex Martin has been raising the bar for nonprofit events in Seattle since 1998. Each year, the Synchronicity team helps over 40 progressive organizations refine and then exceed their event goals. And Alex is happiest when she's helping clients make choices that are environmentally friendly, putting community first when planning all event elements, and eliminating toxic work culture, inefficiencies, and stress around events. So, Alex, no small task, but we are so excited to have you here today. So, thank you.
Hi, nice to see you both.
Alex, is there anything you want to add about your bio? Anything we didn't cover that you'd like folks to know about you to kick us off?
Oh gosh, I came out of the arts. I was trained as an artist, as a dancer, choreographer. Something that's a little known fact about me. But getting into my events business has been such a joyful way to use all those skills and be creative and make things happen with people in space and time and music and energy. And I love it. I'm here. I'm here for all of it.
We are happy to have you here. And
Mhm.
just to tell our listeners a little bit why we invited you to the pod, you might have heard Alex before. She's both a friend of the pod, Event Pro, and also has been featured in the Better Events Conference. So especially if you joined us in person in Seattle, she was a part of our really awesome executive panel. So we also think you're a standout leader, and we're just excited to learn more from you when it comes to team management and events, which is no easy task. So we always like to start broad on the podcast. So to start off, Alex, can you tell us a little bit about your event journey and how you've evolved with building your team over the years?
Yeah, and I think it's going to feel like a pretty common story for those of us that have built a business in events rather than just staying as a freelancer or a, solopreneur, if you will. I did start out just doing events on my own, just me getting on a temporary contract with the groups I was working with. My next step, and this is when I was in my 20s, very young, very energetic. I formed a business with a friend so that we could write our own contract, which was wonderful. So we had our business. So then people signed our contract, which if you haven't made that step yet, please do. It will change everything. That's not that's not the topic of this call, but of this episode. But that was huge. And then volume just got heavier and heavier, and I was doing more and more work. And so I hired on a contract basis helpers, assistants to not only help me at the event, but also, hey, can you just help me schedule all these meetings? Can you come to the meeting with me and take the notes? Just a little support, which in today's realm, we might hire a virtual assistant or remote helper. This was 20 years ago, so I did not have that option. But I had great helpers that, and I would sort of cycle through those people. They tended to work for me for about a year and then move on to other things because I was never providing anything stable for them. It was just kind of like, hey, come with me for these 3 months while I'm really busy, and then see you later. And then they would go find something else to do. So about 10 years ago, I started working in a very different way with my team, where they are still hourly. So the schedule is still very flexible. I'm not demanding a certain number of hours per week from them, but they are on payroll. And we have things like healthcare and benefits. And we have things like a staff meeting that everyone comes to. And it's a bigger team. It's I am at about 6 people right now, including me on our core team, and then a couple of contractors that do specialized jobs like our bookkeeper and another assistant who works remotely. At my biggest Synchronicity events was about 10 human beings. That was during the pandemic when we were in high volume online events. But I feel like we're at a nice comfortable size for me right now. So that's just in a nutshell, sort of how we've come to where we are. And I feel like there's probably a lot of folks out there who will nod and say, yeah, starting with a contractor seems to make sense. And then at some point you take that next step to having employees.
Thank you for sharing that journey. Alex and I have talked a lot about this in other places, not just on the podcast. And I'm
Mhm.
always I'm so intrigued in general about how people build their teams, but then hearing how you do it, I think there are a lot of tangible things and a lot of lessons learned. And so excited to get more into it. There's lots of places I think that we could start and places that we can go. But Alex, in your role, how do you feel like you decide when to step back and be a leader versus like getting really involved in the day-to-day work that your team might be doing? How do you balance those two things and kind of utilize your team to the best of their ability?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is to get to know everyone that works for me and know why they're showing up, what they're excited about, what their strengths are, and hopefully we're going to work on the things that are challenges for them, and they'll become more and more strong in every way. Personally, for my company, at least, and the way we like to do things, I think it takes about a year for us to get somebody fully up to speed. And I know that sounds a little daunting when you're hoping to just get some quick help. But for really getting someone totally on board with all our processes, all our points of view, all the ways that we work, we do nonprofit events. I should have mentioned that earlier on. But so we're also coaching our clients on marketing and on fundraising and on lots of things. So it takes a long time to get someone to the point where they can really kind of steer their own little part of the ship, if you will. So sometimes it's me doing that training. And sometimes, since I do have a bigger team, I'll pair them up with someone more experienced and I make event teams for a season. So that's been my way of not having to read every email, is that I team people up. And so they're a duet basically for the whole season, and hopefully they can tackle anything that comes their way. And the more experienced person can lead, the less experienced person can hopefully be a sponge, soaking it all up and also offering lots of support. But in general, back to your question, Mary, I feel like my personal weakness probably is that I don't like to tell people what to do. So I tend to stand back. And if something comes across my screen where I'm like, oh no, that's not it, then of course I dive in. But I really like event planners to learn by doing and learn by seeing what works. And unless I see something where I'm like, literally, that won't work, I'm going to sort of say, oh, interesting. That's okay, let's try it. Like as long as it's not, again, going to cause some chaos or cause something really ugly to happen. Yeah, I tend to be a little bit more hands off, because also I'm just curious, and that kind of goes back to my artistic training. I'm sort of curious, like, well, what will happen? I mean, I would never do that, but maybe it'll be great. And sometimes it is, and we keep it, and everyone loves it. And other times, the opposite. But that's the journey, right? That's why I'm not doing everything, and it's actually a joy to see what other folks bring.
Yeah, I think that's some of the challenge, right? Is like seeing that people do things differently, but like maybe the end result's the same. And I know that's something I'm always, I guess, concerned about with trying to build a team of my own, because I do like doing things like my way. But I'm just curious, Alex, like what habits or rhythms, whether it's meetings, check-ins, you mentioned that staff meeting everyone's a part of, but what ones do you think matter the most, especially when you're in that earlier phase of building a team?
Oh gosh. I mean, I will point to our weekly staff meeting, which honestly, we're all together for only like 20 minutes or so. And then we split into, I mentioned before, the little groups that are working together, the little duets mostly. But even that time when all 6 of us get to be on Zoom together and just hear what are your roses, what are your thorns, what's happening. People can share a little personal thing if they want to. They're never forced to, but it actually is super helpful. Even when you're brand new to a team, I think just getting to know people, getting to know what's exciting about life for this person, if there's something that's challenging any member of the team, even if they're not on your actual work team, but on a different team, but just knowing that's going on. And hey, something might get sliced off and sent over your way because we're struggling over here right now for whatever reason. So helpful. So I would say anytime you have even more than one of you, have a regular time that you even just don't talk about work, but you say, what's going on? Are you okay? Because things can change really quickly. And, something could have happened over the weekend that has completely changed the way that someone is going to be able to show up for work. And if they don't have the opportunity to give us that information, we are all the worse off for not having that information. So, so that's our everyone together time. And then it really depends on the season. Some seasons I need those work teams to schedule like twice a week, a little scrum. We don't do a daily scrum. I know that's a whole thing you can look up and learn about. But more like we do lots of Slack communication, but then an actual Zoom check-in. Maybe it's only half an hour, but like twice a week to just say, okay, how are these things? Are these cleared? Are these all checked off? Are those agendas ready for next week? Are these vendors updated? Whatever it is that we're working on, is this plan updated? Yeah, I would say our main check-in once a week, and then probably just team check-ins twice a week in addition to that. And at that one staff meeting, I, as the business owner and whatever I am, fearless leader, I do check in with all my event planners on everything, like what, and really sometimes the question is pretty quick, like, is there anything I need to worry about on this one? And if the answer is no, because some of the folks have worked with me 7 years, 10 years, I don't ask any other questions. I'm just like, just tell me if there's something I need to worry about, whether that's a client management question, the venue's been giving us lots of flack, whatever it is, what can I help you solve? And then with newer people, we do a much more detailed check-in where I actually ask them about everything. That's my answer.
That's awesome. I think something you said is really important about the human element that you bring to leadership and events. And it's so simple, but I have found in my experience that it's something that's like really often overlooked as well. Because like you said, people have lives outside of this, and it is sometimes hard not to not bring that into your work situation. And with events too, we all know that they take like another level of, just emotion and physical capacity and all of the things. So it is more, I think, relevant perhaps than some other industries. It's always important, but really those things come to fruition, I feel like, when you're on site.
100%. Like, I need to know if you just twisted your ankle. It's actually,
It's actually
high level information. Yes.
Yeah, which I love that you have that perspective. And as someone who, used to be on teams, that's something that I think I would have found really valuable. So I think that's great to call out. Something else that I would have thought is really valuable are some of the team building activities that you shared that you've done throughout the years. You've mentioned some retreats that you do or just other reflections that you've done with your team. So can you share a little bit more about those?
Yes, I'm actually super, this was one of my goals for this year for last year, sorry, 2025. I was really hoping to kind of expand, amplify, strengthen this element of our team. And I feel really happy with what we did. So the backstory there is we used to have an office, which, by the way, I'm a huge fan of remote work. We no longer have an office because nobody went to it. And I was like, why am I renting this office? So we took the money that I used to spend renting the office. And instead we have twice a year, a really nice day together, right? So it's and actually, I mean, it's not even really a work retreat. We are going to do separately a work retreat, our first ever overnight retreat coming up very soon. Super jazzed about that. But we just do a day together. In the summer, we did a beach day, totally like luxury A+ 5-star beach day on Alki with all the tents and all the takeout food and all the games, and it was super fun. And then in the winter, we did a spa day with just like hot tub soak and a wellness like a joy workshop just for us. And I don't know, they were just really sweet. So I'm going to continue that. And what's really the most fun about those is I no longer plan our retreat days. I now have the team plan it in little duets aside from the one they're usually working in. So they get to collaborate with someone new, make a fun experience for the rest of us. Cause we're event planners. We want to plan a fun experience for the team. Right. So it's like, it's just a way to enjoy and really, again, get to know each other, maybe work on something, but also just rest and just feel some enjoyment in this world, which is sometimes not offering us that opportunity. We kind of have to grab it and make it for ourselves.
I love that none of those ideas you mentioned was just like a happy hour or just something like, as event people we know are exhausting. And yet I feel like that's what you hear is like, oh, that's when we bond. And it's like, all of your other ideas sound so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, they've
I
been
love an
really fun.
activity.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, you've mentioned too, we talked about this a little bit on our panel at the conference, which I loved, was talking about balancing, like for you as you said, the business owner, the wearer of many hats, like how do you balance supporting your team while also still holding people accountable from this kind of human first approach that it sounds like you take?
Yeah, I mean, over the years of having a team and different people cycling on and off, I will say there's only one time where someone was really not being accountable to do her work, and I had to let her go, and that was devastating. Do not recommend, but it's going to happen. Just as soon as you hire someone, the best advice I ever heard was like, as soon as you hire that first person, you have to be prepared to fire them. Hopefully it will never happen, but emotionally, it's really rough. And if someone tells you it's not rough, they're lying. It's one of those things that will keep you up at night. So I would say, and probably the critique I would have for myself is I sometimes let situations bubble for longer, because as I mentioned before, I don't like to tell people what to do. So I'm like, oh, that person's making interesting choices. And then finally the rest of my team usually comes in and says, actually, this person is really letting us down. We can't succeed if they're going to be in the way. And so when it gets to that point, and that's why it's nice to have a team that we can all be honest with each other about what's really happening and have those lines of communication just a little more open, and hopefully from the heart. There's not to ever, shoot somebody down, but just to say, look, this is not it. But in terms, you asked, how do I step in? I feel like I have to step in. Well, currently I'm stepping in a lot right now. We have someone out on medical leave. We've had just sometimes really heavy seasons. So what suffers the most is the other work that I would like to do, marketing, sales, et cetera. I'm pretty behind on booking my year right now, because I've been covering a lot of event production details for folks that have not been able to. So I'm kind of like covering the gap, if you will, until they come back. So I would say the size we're at, it's still me doing everything. It would be awesome if I had an operations manager that would just step in and and hold on to things, but unfortunately it's all me. So I don't feel like I've cracked that nut completely, Logan. That's just like, man, it would be great to have another layer, I guess, so that I could stay the course on the other business tasks that I have.
It's a process. It feels like it ebbs and flows. And for our listeners to know, Alex was somebody I went to when I was playing with the idea of getting a VA, a virtual assistant. I came to you and a couple other event pros for advice. And that was when I laughed when you'd mentioned earlier on, it takes a year, because I only gave my VA about 3 months. And then I decided it wasn't for me, at least in that phase. And I admit it was on me. I didn't train them adequately. I didn't have the time. And to your point, it takes time to then be able to truly offload. And I think I was hoping it'd be more turnkey of, here's a couple documents, processes, go. And it was not that case, but I can see the long-term value, just hard to get started.
One of the things, though, I think that contributes to everything that you've talked about is trust. It seems like, Alex, with your team, there is a level of trust that you've tried to build so that they can come to you when there's these issues and all of that. So can you just speak a little bit more to that trust and how you actually build that over time?
How do I build trust over time? Well, first thing when we do, you just build it all the time. You just have to always be thinking about it a little bit. So every week at staff meeting, I try to share something a little bit vulnerable, like, hey, this is what's happening. Here's something that didn't go so well for me last week, so that my team knows that they are invited to also share something that didn't go so well, and that we learn. That's how we learn. And we talk about like, what are we going to learn from this? What are we going to take from it? What else? I also, we also talk, again, just talking really frankly, and also the teammates that have been with me for longer. So they're in those leader positions as well. Also just offering that honesty and that sense of like, hey, can we also show up in front of the client sometimes with a question, or maybe we forgot something and we just ask them, hey, can you remind us about this, so that we're never pretending to be perfect. I think that obviously event planning, we have a strong pull towards perfectionism. It rears up all the time. And as soon as we can say, actually, I'm a human, I'm doing this with you, can you remind me what we decided about that? And just even letting the client or other vendors be with you in the work. I think that just that simple level of honesty gets us pretty far, I hope.
I love that. That's definitely one. The transparency and accepting that you're human, I feel like has gone a long way. I don't have, again, my own full-time team, but some of my on-site teams that I manage, sometimes it's just admitting like, why'd that happen? It's like, it was a human was pushing that button. They pushed the wrong button. We quickly, fixed it. But having that level of candidness. And I like that you're showing that we're not perfect, which I think is easier said than done for some folks, but a good way to build that trust and rapport. How do you know when a team issue is a people problem versus a systems problem in your business?
Oh, that was a great question. I would say I'm always down to change the system. So I would, if especially if more than one, and I would say it's kind of hard to tell when your team is really small. Like if it's only you and one other person and that other person is like, oh, I really hate using this system to track my timesheet. And you're like, oh, bro, it's the system we have. You just got to use it. But then once you have 5 people and they're all saying they hate it, it's a lot easier to root out like, oh, if this really isn't working, then I, as a business owner, can easily go out and find a different timesheet and we can start using it. Right. So but I would say maybe when you're first getting started and you're only bouncing ideas off one other person, it can be really hard. And I would say also your system will change depending who's on your team. Like there might be a time where, you want to have in-person meetings and then you realize, oh, now with this new group, we're going to go to a virtual meeting for our staff meeting, or trying to think of other examples of things we've changed over time. I'm a strong believer in like working with the people you have while they're with you, because they're probably not going to stay forever. It's great if they do, but while they're with you, like what can we do to make sure this little group gets to gel, right? And have the right tools.
I know what you're saying though, because with us, I have a really small team, but I get feedback about one of our project management systems like repeatedly. I'm like, this is what we have and this is what we're going to use, and you need to figure out how to use it. But I do keep getting feedback about it. And so I've been thinking about, maybe, I'm not saying we have to change, but maybe there's something we need to improve kind of in that process a little bit. So you are speaking to me when you're talking about that, for sure. But another thing that comes up that I've experienced, and I think a lot of others have experienced in team management, is just different personalities that people have. And that's completely fair because we're all our own humans. But how do you kind of manage those different personalities and work styles when you're managing the team?
I try to capitalize. Well, first of all, I try to get to know everyone's personality and work style, and then I try to use it to my advantage. So when I match one of my event planners with a client, I'm looking for like, oh, hey, I met with this client. They seem really like high level, type A. They want everything. Like they're like, we need this, we need this. And they're coming in with like just a really hot energy. And I'm like, oh, I have the perfect event planner for you. I do. And then and then sometimes I have a client who just seems like they're in their instincts. They're just a little bit more heart-led, heart-centered. They're like looking at from different perspectives. They want guidance, but they don't want anyone like, pushing decisions too fast. Oh boy, I have the perfect event planner, totally different person than person A. So I'm actually looking, because of the work that we do and we have multiple clients, multiple projects, I'm trying to get to know my folks well enough that I can team them up in a space where their gifts are actually a gift to the whole situation. So that's my quickest answer. Cause yeah, I love to hire people that don't match. They don't match each other. As we get along, but we're not copies of me, and they're not copies of each other. And I'm really actually super proud of that. I think it gives us a lot more range.
Yeah, no, that's so great. It is true that a lot of people can do the same job, but different nuances and personality clicks. And I've definitely been on the side where there's me and a client. I'm like, we're just, boom, we are best buds. We know, we like can anticipate what each other are thinking. And then there's other ones where I'm like, it's just our personalities are different. Again, neither of us is bad at what we're doing. We just are different personalities. I'm curious, Alex, for you as like the business owner, how do you manage your own energy when it comes to showing up and managing your team?
Gosh, I am probably not a great example. I will answer a Slack that comes in at 9 p.m. if I happen to look at my phone, because I'm like, well, not that I want anyone to work at 9 p.m., but if this is the time you have to work, cool. Like, I don't want you to have to wait for me. So I think I probably, I could have firmer boundaries. On the other hand, I do take time off, and I did go for the holidays and was completely off the grid and didn't respond to anything for 2.5 weeks, which was, I highly recommend, really helpful. Of course, it was not high season. Nobody really needed me. So let's see. So I think scheduling and then like giving myself those breaks, then I can return with joy and energy to the work, which is true for everybody, even if you don't have a team. Give yourself rest. We can't just go from here to the horizon with no breaks. But the team and your team can help you rest too. Like we can trade off. We can say, hey, you're taking this time off. I'll take this other week off. So we can cover for each other. Like even when you just have an assistant, I think hopefully that can be one of the joyful things, is getting to take care of yourself a little more.
And this brings us kind of closer to the end of our question. So, listeners, we hope that as you're reflecting on this, and maybe you're considering building a team, or maybe you think, "Oh no, I'm just going to do a one-person thing," it's all okay. I think that there is no necessarily standard or right way to do it. It can look different for everyone. So, I think Alex, you sharing what you've done is really helpful to give people some examples. Is there anything else that you would like to add that we didn't cover, or any other tips and tricks you have about team management before we end?
Probably the only thing that I would offer as an advice, quote unquote, as an advice, is I feel like people sometimes wait until they're overloaded to get help. And if your goal is to build your business, I think you have to really try to find a time to bring your first person or first couple of people on in a time when you are not busy, so that you can train them. And I know it's really hard because you're looking at cash flow and you're saying, oh no, if I start to pay someone just to learn, because you have to pay them for the time they spend learning. And again, for me, that's a long time. But they're also getting lots of things done during that time too, right? But I would just say the overall thing that I think most of us do is we're very aware of our cash flow. So we wait, and we're like, I think I can go one more year without a helper. But just think, if you did get that helper, all the other windows that are going to open up for you once you have time to think about your business in a different way and time to say yes to more opportunities. So I would just say, if you're thinking it's time to grow your team, think carefully, but also don't think for too long, because your business will continue to just rest on your shoulders. You can only carry so much weight.
That is a great note to end on, Alex. And where can listeners find you if they want to learn more?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we're at Synchronocity, which is hard to spell, SYNCHRONICITY. Why did I name my business an impossible word to spell? Do not recommend that choice. But it means something cool. But if you go to synchronicity-events.com, you will find us. We're doing lots of projects around mostly the Seattle area, and mostly for nonprofit organizations. So if anyone wants to cook up a collaboration or just connect, would love to hear from you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alex, for sharing your expertise and your time with us. We super appreciate it. And that does bring us to the end of our episode. So, Logan, you have our bonus tip for today.
Thanks, Mary. Yes, I have the bonus tip this week. It is all about having backup machines for your production. I had a show earlier this month where we were so grateful that we had 2 laptops running the graphics for our show, because weirdly during show, one of the graphics, the one PowerPoint, just froze up. And because we already had 2 machines, and when I say machines, like laptops spun up and working in sync, we were able to like seamlessly jump over to the other one. And while that's an added cost to have a second machine, running during your event, it was one that we were able to seamlessly, from the attendee perspective, they had no idea that anything went wrong. So to me, it was very much a valuable cost. If slides, content on your screens is like important to your show, make sure that you have backup machines running during your production.
We love backups. So that's a great bonus tip, Logan. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Better Events Pod. You can email us at bettereventspod@gmail.com. You can also connect with all of us that were here on the podcast today directly on LinkedIn. We love to hear from you. Just let us know that you heard about us from the podcast. And if you want even more Better Events content, you can join our private community on Substack. But we just thank you so much for listening, and we will be back in your feeds again next Wednesday.